Hey there, my name's Joe Keyport, and you're listening to the Ear Coffee Podcast. For this week's episode, I catch up with the Symptones. Now, you might remember the band from their first appearance back in 2019 to talk about their debut, Irrational Fears, Overactive Imagination. And now the five-piece is back to discuss their follow-up self-titled release. It was great to catch up and talk about the band's post-pandemic work. So I'm going to get out of the way. It's the Symptones, and they're right here on the Ear Coffee Podcast. How's it going?
Great.
Really good.
We just got done playing a live session here, so we're a little sweaty, a little, maybe a little loopy. But I appreciate you taking some time to chat. Let's first start off with everybody just introducing themselves so we can put some names to voices.
Yeah, cool. I can
Start with Taylor. Yeah.
Taylor, I play guitar and sing in the Symptones.
This is Jeremy. I play bass.
I'm Andrew. I play guitar also.
This is Steve. I play drums.
This is Jake. I play the horn and the keys.
Awesome. So let's start off here. Something that I ask every band is, what's your descriptor for Symptones when you're like either at your work or it's at a family gathering and like, oh, you're in a band. That's cool. What do you play? What's your like little log line that you're just like, well, we're this, so you can move the conversation along? What's that line?
Starting off with the hardest question right off the bat.
What do you use?
It's tough because I'm always just like, oh yeah, we're like rock, but then we also like have a song that sounds like this, like funky or country. But I've also been kind of using rock and soul instead of rock and roll because we have a little bit of brass with Jake here.
What do you use, Steve?
I say the generic indie rock.
Yeah.
Then I list a bunch of bands that we don't really sound like. That in my head, we kind of sound like.
Yeah.
Then you have the what is indie rock question next for the people who don't know. You're like,
Yeah, I think when I describe it to older people, it's normally like, yeah, kind of classic rock stuff. We have a lot of classic rock influences, and then definitely just indie influences and as well.
I definitely tailor it to like who I'm talking to for sure. It's usually just like I tell them it's like some kind of rock. Go listen to it, and then you tell me. But yeah, definitely like you said, like older people. It's like like I mean, you can get some like Springsteen influences in there. Thinking that'll like catch their ear or eye or whatever.
Yeah. I think when we first chatted in 2019, I described you as like the all-American kind of rock band sound a little bit with that first record.
How has that changed?
That's a good question because it's like still there, but I feel like it's morphed into the soul aspect. I think is like the one little softer.
Help us describe our band,
right? I've had to like properly think about what to call a band since we stopped blogging. But yeah.
Someone told me Taylor sounds like he's singing kind of gospel-y.
Oh, really?
Which I hope is true because I think that'd be awesome.
Neat.
Little rootsy. I've been into the band as of late again, so it kind of fits that roots rock. Yeah.
Definitely. I could see that for sure. Yeah.
Well, you've already been on the podcast, so if people want to know more about kind of we're not going to talk so much about the history of the band. They can go listen to that episode. But let's just do a brief little kind of when did y'all form and kind of what's the band look like? We can just do a really abbreviated.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I think we started in 2016 around then. Andrew Polsky and I had gotten together and started playing a lot of just acoustic covers and some music that we were into at the time. I was just going through some really old voice memos on my phone the other night and came across some of the old songs that we were playing, and one of our first singles or one of our first songs originals that we had played, Eyes on the Road. And so we were playing in a basement together, and then Steve had joined, played drums, started just learning more covers together as a somewhat band, decided that we wanted to try playing a show before we even had a name. And I think we probably talked about that on the podcast the last time that we were on. But yeah, we booked a show and didn't have a name, and so that was a mad scramble.
We didn't have a bass player either.
We didn't have a bass player.
Which was terrible.
Yeah, didn't have a bass player and didn't have
Jeremy
on trumpet either.
Yeah, it wasn't cool White Stripe style. It was we just didn't have a bass player.
It's funny.
Yeah, and I think at that time, Jeremy, you were playing in a couple different bands, and so we had to kind of coerce you into playing with us. Yeah.
I was playing in a country cover band around the time they were getting together, and I was also in this other kind of like classic rock cover band, and then I was kind of getting tired of that whole thing. But like around that time that I kind of got out of that, Steve was always texting me like, "Hey, we're getting together to jam if you want."
Yeah,
like, I could never make it work, but I did make it work. Kind of near, I don't know, maybe fall of 2016. And,
Okay.
I remember my first show was in Taylor's garage at his old house.
Yeah.
And then my second show was 7th Street Entry. And I think that's really what sold me. I'm like, oh, they're playing at 7th Street. I'll play with these guys.
Yeah.
That was a blast. That was really
Nemec
cool.
joined before Jeremy.
Yep.
if I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah.
mistaken.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there was a
Officially, yes.
yeah, officially.
At least played a show with us.
Yeah.
before, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a song on that first EP called "Settle the Score" that I'd written and really wanted to have trumpet on it, and so that's when I think Nemec came into the picture. So, yeah, I think that's the history of the band. We haven't really changed as far as the format of the band. We've changed practice spaces, a few different elements that we've added in. Originally didn't have any keyboard parts in our tunes, and Nemec has stepped up as a multi-instrumentalist on stage and on recordings lately, which is
I'm
really
trying to push the auxiliary percussion agenda as much as I can also.
I was gonna say I also play a mean vibra slap.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Your shaker is off the charts.
Yeah. So is that like the extra, like the keys and stuff? Was that just like songwriting, or is it just like, oh, I want to add some other things to the what you already play with the band?
I think it was a little bit of a mix of both. So there were some songs on this on the new album that I'd worked on some demos that I knew I wanted to have keyboard on, and like a good example of that on this album is Getting On. And had a really good keyboard part in mind.
Yeah.
But then you've definitely taken added parts, like on Power Lines. That was a part that you wrote and brought to the band. So, yeah, a little bit of a mix of both.
Okay, cool.
And so during songwriting, for sure, had some parts that came about. And then stuff gets added too. That's pretty sweet.
Obviously, you'd put out your kind of the debut record in 2019, and COVID kind of shut down everything for everyone. No one was really playing music. Did you? The one thing that kind of I noticed from the band's output, I mean, some people were trying to do whatever they could. They didn't. Was it the quarantine sessions or whatever you did?
Yeah.
Which were some of the tracks from that record. Were you trying to do stuff kind of virtually or socially distanced as best as possible, or was it
Not really.
Not really.
I think at first we had hopes for being able to do some of that, but it was a pretty big hiatus, right? And it was I'm sure everybody has said this on the podcast that it just really stunk having to hit pause, and felt like we had lost a lot of momentum during that time, especially because we had some songs that we knew that we wanted to record.
Yeah, a good chunk. At least a few of the ones. I don't remember how many, but at least a handful of the ones on the new album we'd already written with plans to like start recording.
Yeah. Okay.
And then COVID hit, and so it's like, all right.
Yeah. And so I think we played it pretty safe, I think, as far as getting together, and attempted a couple like I don't know, band FaceTimes where we tried to practice, and latency is a real problem when you're
I
trying
can only
to
imagine, especially with like you only have 5 members. Like it's just still like probably a fair problem.
It was it was a little goofy. So we just kind of hit pause, I think, all around as far as practicing. But a lot of the songs ended up getting written around that time too, which was I felt fortunate that I had that outlet at that time.
Yeah.
Obviously, and I'm sure many people have said that too, but it was nice being able to I don't know, put some energy into something productive and feel like I was still gaining ground, I guess, on the Symptones and gaining ground on the project as a whole. But I think once we started getting back together, I was really, really excited to bring some of the songs that I had messed around with during that period to the band. And I remember very vividly bringing Getting On to the band and being just so pumped when we were able to first play it and how cool like the bass riff sounded, because it was just so much better than what I had worked on my own.
Stop.
Yeah, it was fine. It was fine.
Which, yeah. So it was great to like just be fall back into it and have a batch of songs that were pretty well formed. So that was really nice.
So for the rest of you, were you sending files back and forth to try and do some writing during that time as a collaborative unit, or was it more Taylor, where you were just kind of like working on songs and just hoping for the next time you felt comfortable enough to get together that you could maybe work a couple of tunes out?
It was mostly Taylor.
Okay.
And like some of the demos, I was like, these sound sick. And like, I was like, do we even want drums on this?
Yeah.
Like, and you know, obviously.
Yes, we did.
Obviously, we do. Just kidding. But yeah, it was mainly Taylor kind of, even if it wasn't like a fully written song, it'd be like, you know, a verse or a chorus or something. And then like when we finally started getting back together again, it was like, oh, so then we can like some of the songs on the album are like pretty close, you know, they don't sound necessarily the same, but like speaking purely from a drum perspective, the beat is like similar to like, because like some of them had no drums, or some would be like you did it on Pro Tools or whatever. But then once we finally got back together, it's like some would be completely different or whatever. Yeah. And so I would say it was mainly Taylor kind of writing the songs, and then once we got back together, it was like, all right, now we can rock once again.
Yeah. What was that first practice like for y'all when you could?
Rusty.
Yeah.
Well, they were so spaced out.
Yeah.
And then when we get together and one of us would get COVID.
Yeah,
and then
that happened many before we decided to go again with Ollie to record this. We were gonna try to record ourselves. We were like, oh, maybe that'll be a little safer, and then it'll give us a little more freedom, be cheaper. And like, so we had Take a Look Around, one of the songs we played tonight. That was probably the one we got furthest on recording ourselves, and I swear it was like we did like one take, and then Taylor was like, oh, I just looked at my phone and my wife has has COVID, so I gotta go.
Yeah, it's just so
that happened like 3 times
at
least.
It did, yeah.
So it'd be like, all right, we're going. Oh, then we need to take like 2 weeks off or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. We're good at working through a lot of band adversity.
Yeah.
Outside forces like Mother Nature. That's a big one for us.
Oh, Mother Nature, can really screw us.
We've had a handful of shows where it's like, all right, the show's going to be great. Then it snows like 12 feet.
Oh,
and
it's June. We play like Kitty Cat Club in the middle of a blizzard.
It was a Monday. There was no one in the crowd.
There were 4 people at that show. And it was the other band.
Yeah.
Plus Kevin Long.
Shout out,
Kevin.
That's funny.
I remember being nervous about getting my car towed in the snow emergency.
Yeah.
That was brutal.
Yeah.
I do remember our first time we got together since COVID hit. We actually ended up back in Taylor's garage, and we were all masked up.
Oh my god! I
remember that? Yeah,
totally
and
forgot
then
about that. Yes,
I have an electronic drum kit too that I brought over too, and that's what Steve played
fun.
too. But I remember I think that was the first time we really jammed Getting On together. Was in his garage, and it's actually the first time I met Taylor's daughter in person.
That is so fun. Yeah, that is right. That's crazy. I totally blocked that part of it.
I do remember playing the electronic drum set and being like, what the fuck? What are we doing
not
here?
the same.
Why did we do that? Just to be quieter?
No, I think we did it because we felt that the garage was safer than the basement.
I know, but why did we play the electronic drums?
Or maybe we thought
I
that was
have no
quieter
clue.
too, or something.
Yeah, that was probably it.
The point is we had lots of stops and starts.
We have a
COVID made us really lazy too, so that's a lot easier to pack in a car than an actual
That's very valid.
acoustic
Yeah.
drum set, so.
We do have a song on the album called Buster's Song that is all about my neighbor who famously did not like noise.
Oh.
So that was
Yeah.
the electronic drum set was probably at least in part due to Al.
Yeah.
That's his actual name. I'm not
we
afraid.
we
I'm
played
not
a show in your garage.
not afraid to
and
say it.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's the one that called the cops on us.
Called the cops. The cops were okay with it, and they hung out for a bit.
They hung
which
out and
was
they
great.
watched some
That's
songs
funny.
and then
Yeah.
they left.
That's funny.
Yeah. And also very likely wrote an anonymous note that he dropped in our mailbox.
He's a coward.
Yeah,
Very
right.
bravely.
Yeah, it's like the concerned citizens have a problem with this. You're like, just sign your name.
Yeah.
We all know who you
We know
are.
it's you.
Yeah.
You know it's you.
You guys are going to be real upset when it turns out Al is like a regular listener to your coffee.
I hope he is. What's up, Al?
That'd be funny.
He's an A&R
You're,
guy.
you're getting another anonymous letter.
He doesn't know our new address.
Yeah, that's funny.
At least I hope.
So the second record is self-titled. How does it feel to have out after all of this?
Huge
Yeah.
relief.
Feels
Huge relief. Yeah,
Yeah.
it feels awesome. It feels really cool. I think everybody just worked a ton on it, and we put in a ton of work on it. And so it feels great to have it out. It feels great to have a show under our belts with the album out. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
having it out and being able to actually show people the songs that we have been talking about for so long.
Yeah.
So long, yeah.
Yeah. So like with a band, you know, your first record's always like the big statement. This is the first real representation of a full product. Was there any pressure to have LP2 kind of live up to that hype for you, or like kind of be the next step? Or was it just like, let's get these songs out, we like them, we'll put them in a sequential order and keep going?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, we felt pressure just to like do better than we did last time, you know, and learn from what we had done in the studio, and just make sure that we were getting the sounds that we wanted and being thoughtful about what our parts were. So it was the first project that we did where we recorded to a click, which was a challenge, but I think ultimately ended up putting out I don't know, something that we were able to do overdubs to much easier, and it feels tight. So I think in that regard, I don't know that we ever felt any pressure to outdo our last album, but
You always want to outdo your last album, though. And like, I feel personally like these songs are better than any of the other ones we've written before. And especially because, like we were saying, half of them or whatever we wrote years ago at this point. And so we kept getting better and better. We also went into a better studio with Ollie. Ollie's gotten better.
yep.
Like everything about it was like, all right, let's do this better. And like, I feel like we worked way harder on, I mean, not that we didn't work hard on the last ones, but this one felt like more work in a good way.
Yep.
More recording days, more sessions. I mean, more songs.
I think we
literally.
were more prepared going into it too. Like I think we were really well rehearsed because of the stops and starts, right? Like I think we had a few moments where we were like, all right, we're ready to record 5 of these songs, and we would hammer them and practices leading up to those those stops. So I think we felt well rehearsed, which helped, and knew our parts pretty well, I think, going into the recording process.
Well, cool. So let's talk about the writing, because we kind of touched on, you know, a little bit of the writing process for this, but talk to me about writing the songs on this record. I mean, some of them are, I think when we talked in 2019, you mentioned that some of these were already kind of in the can, ready to go. But where were you pulling from? What were you working on kind of from your in your brains, in your life? What was going into these songs as you were writing them over the course of what, like 4 years now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think there are probably themes that can be pulled out of some of the songs. Certainly, anxiety being one of them. There were a lot of different like changes in my group of people and family and with relationships and whatnot. And so some of the songs have, I guess, a focus on that. on relationships with significant others, or and then there are certainly I'd say like the COVID batch of songs that are a little more introspective, I guess. And there are definitely songs that are, I guess the camera is pointed back on to the lens is pointed back on the songwriter. And like one example of that I'd say is like Cynical Carousel, where I think we had the start of that, like half of the song written, and I was like, I don't know if this is going to make the album just because I can't finish another verse of it. And then like figured out the problem with it because like the first verse is talking about this person, right? This hypothetical person. But then just flipping it back around on the songwriter, and that's when it like clicked and really worked. But so like Something to Care For feels more introspective. Reset, which also I didn't know if it would make the album just because it has a completely different feel, but it's almost like a sister song to Cynical Carousel. It's a Mess was one that I was really just happy with the way that like lyrically I don't think that it's anything super special, but the way that the lyrics are overlaid on the music, just it's really fun to sing. And so it's a fun one to be able to sing. Dark Little Home was one that was pre-COVID. I distinctly remember this day just because it was I think it might have been one of the first days that it was early having moved jam spaces. And so we were in Jeremy's basement and we were attempting to treat some of the reflections and whatnot in the jam space, and it was still pretty boomy. And so we had this plan we bought some rugs from Menards and brought some blankets and stuff that we were gonna hang up and some like acoustic foam and whatnot. But it was the first sunny day after like a 20-day dreary stretch in early 2020. It was February 2020. And my wife and I had gone to the art shanties is that on Nokomis in Uptown where they do that? Harriet? Okay. Harriet. And it was just like a beautiful day. Everybody, I think, was feeling good about it and just a good vibe in the practice space that day. And I think that was one of the first like songs that we just started jamming to, and it felt really cool. And so somebody, I think, had recorded that quickly on their phone, and the lyrics to that came pretty quick. So that's kind of all over the map, but a mix of songs, I think, that were written more collaboratively. So Power Lines was one that was that's older of this batch, and I think we've had for a while and had written it definitely with the band in mind. Cousin James, I remember that being like a time that I was feeling very cagey and was like feeling stir crazy with just being stuck in the house. And I think I'd written it in the winter, and my daughter was like just starting to crawl around at the time. And so she was playing with toys right next to me, and I was writing it on a nylon string that I have. And I was like, this song is really, really weird. And I do think it's a goofy song. And yeah, so it's just a mix of having written more pieces together, some that came a little less fully formed to the band, and definitely the musical parts end up getting worked out with the band.
Taylor comes to us with something he wants us to do, and then we just don't do it. We do our own thing.
You're like, cool, and then play. Yeah.
You also seem to write the opposite of what's going on around you. So Dark Little Home was on a really nice day,
Oh,
And Cousin James
okay.
said it was on a really bad day.
Yeah.
Like the
Yeah,
most,
it's about
like,
your
upbeat-
nephew John.
that's really funny.
Never noticed that.
Oh, that's good. Cool. I like that.
Yeah. Well, I think like listening to it, it's almost like your first record, which was Irrational Fears Overactive Imagination was the title. A lot of
Guess
those.
is as good as ours.
Yeah, I was like trying to remember. I had it written down because I knew I was going to reference it.
Yeah.
But like a lot of those songs really come from this place of like kind of that the way your brain would work when you're like feeling a little neurotic, a little overthinking. You're
Sure.
really focusing in, and I felt like a lot of the songs on this record kind of played into that as well.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I think that's probably just a product of what writing music has become to me is that it's an outlet, right, for some of those feelings or those uncertainties or just emotions that I want to be able to get out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's a lot of what music has been for me is it's an outlet.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely an outlet.
Yeah. Well, cool. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about the track listing, and correct me if I am off base on this, but I feel like Buster's song is almost a false start for the record. You get to like reset, and you almost really want to go back into it's a mess, and I feel like Buster's song is like this perfect little like happier kind of moment into what's like the main body of the work, in my opinion. Is that, am I not?
You guys want to talk about that? Take that one.
Yeah, we first of all, we're the worst band at making any single decision on earth. It sucks. It really sucks. Right down to the band name. But
one of the reasons this album's self-titled too.
yeah.
You have no idea how many band names we floated around, or sorry, album names.
But it really came from like Ali Jafar recorded us. He's recorded all of our albums. Our like last or one of the last like true tracking days, we were just like, well, what should we do for like, sequence? And he was kind of like, I don't know, like Buster's is such like an iconic opening, and like I don't think any of us thought of it as like the intro song. We were like, okay, well, it does like it rocks.
Yeah.
It kind of like builds. It's like fun.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it was kind of like we kind of really trusted him with a lot of the like decisions, like sequencing and stuff, because we just knew from our stupid broken brains that we would take weeks to like decide and send a million texts, and it would really suck. And so like he kind of broke it up into like chunks. He was like, because it's 12 songs, so he kind of broke it up into like 4, 4, 4. So it was like the first 4. Buster's definitely doesn't really tie necessarily with those, but it's like a nice, it's a sick opening. And then it's like It's a Mess, Getting On, and Cousin James kind of are all like groovy.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like the next 4 are kind of like rocking. And then it's like the next 4 are kind of, they all rock, let's be honest.
Yeah.
But like, but like it's kind of like the next 4 are a little more, I don't want to say serious, but like a little more like, I don't know what, but like,
I think that's true.
And so like in our minds, when he, at least to me, when he broke it down kind of like that, like these like kind of like a suite, it's like a 3-act structure. It made a lot of sense. And yeah, Buster is definitely kind of random, but like doesn't like the Replacements Hootenanny start out with Hootenanny, and it's like the dumbest song on the album. And like there's all these other like albums that start with like and like I kept thinking of I Love the Beastie Boys, and Paul's Boutique starts with To All the Girls, which is like the dumbest song on the album. And then it goes into Shake Your Rump, which also, quote unquote dumb, but banger.
Yeah.
And so like to start it off with something that kind of like, in my mind, it's kind of like an essay. It's like an attention grabber. There's like digital hand claps. There's a dog barking.
Yeah.
It rocks. It's like a minute and a half long.
Yeah.
And then it goes into It's a Mess, which was the one we probably were like most like, this could be the hit. The current disagrees. But yeah, long story short, it is like a weird intro, but we felt like it was kind of, at least to me, I always thought it was like, we're throwing all these different tools that we didn't really do on the last album, like digital effects, weird like phone recordings of a dog barking, not like a normal song. I love the band Joyce Manor, and I love that they have songs that are like a minute and a half long, and it's like verse, chorus, something else, and the song's done. And it, not that sounds like them, I don't think, but it kind of reminded me of like, I like this like minute and a half punchy song, and then it goes into kind of the rest. I don't know if that really answered the question, but that's how I see it.
Yeah, gotcha.
I would also say I feel like the songs kind of mature throughout the track listing, through the sequence. You know, like
call.
Buster's song is kind of like, you know, you're like a little kid, like just kind of run around in circles, and then you kind of hit your, you know, teenage years and college years, and then you kind of, you know, venture into, you know, adulthood, and you know, by the time you get to Reset, you're like, oh,
You've reached enlightenment.
right.
Just had it all.
Okay. Really,
That's a
let's
real
really
cool
take it in.
interpretation.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah, I love Reset. Like I was like this forever. I was like, this might be the best song on the album, even though it's just acoustic and Taylor singing. And I always thought of it. I kept on thinking it could be like higher up on the album. Like thinking it was like, I kept thinking of like Big Star 13 or like Androgynous by the Replacements, and all of those songs. I was like, those are all like early on in the album. But then Ollie was like, no, it needs to end with the punch of Something to Care For and then Reset. And so it was like, and it's cool that it's the end and it's like Reset.
Yeah, maybe you need to reset the album.
Yeah.
And listen to it again.
I hope that's implied.
Yeah. Yeah. So we kind of talked a little bit about working with Ollie. Why did you go back? Obviously, we love Ollie. We're big Ollie stands here on the podcast. Not only is like, you know, the music he makes fantastic, but he's a great producer here in the cities. But like he obviously plays a pretty big role in the band's creative process outside of just like pressing record and setting up some microphones, which is a really stupid way to say everything he does. You know, he just puts up a microphone and presses record.
That's definitely not what he does.
No, he makes the magic happen. So
I can say for me, like I felt incredibly comfortable with him the last time that we had recorded, and then that was definitely the case this time around, where he was willing to step in and help us make decisions when we needed him to.
Yeah.
And he was also like just instrumental in helping us arrange some different parts that I was either unsure of or we were either unsure of. Like, so a good example, I think, is some of the vocal melodies were definitely his, like his influence. Him, like I think we have a video of him even like, you should sing it this way, and then would sing the part, and then I'd just try to match what he had sung.
Yeah.
And he's just a cool person to work with. Like no bullshit, I think, and was really honest, I think, with what we were working
He's the
on.
sixth symptome at this point. Yeah, officially, like he makes, like Taylor was saying, he makes so many decisions that are maybe not immediate, like they're not obvious answers to us. And so we'll often rely on him for stuff. And like now that we've worked on the album and our first EP with him, we have just this like secondhand, like he knows how we work and like how our songs generally work and stuff and like what we're looking for. And so I think, like I said, we wanted to try to record ourselves, and I'm sure we could have done it and the album would have came out in 2026. But like,
Been much worse.
I don't really remember what the initial, like, we were kind of like, okay, we want this album to come out in the summer. And then it was kind of like, all right, Ollie, can we do this? And he was like, yeah, now I work out of Flower Studio, and so we can make like the drums sound fucking awesome. And like, we were kind of sold at that point. And then, I mean, the first session, we basically tracked all of the drums and bass, and it was like, oh yeah, we are so glad we went with Ollie again. And like, I don't know, I feel like he's crucial to the album making process for us at this point.
Yeah, he even played keys on one of the songs.
Probably more than one.
Yeah, for sure, more than one.
Also, he was really into. Oh, you go.
I just said he took my job.
He also got really into weird energy drinks, so that was a nice. That was a nice. Like we tried the Sour Patch Kids energy drink.
Oh yeah,
and the like Jake Paul or Logan Paul, whatever the hell that's called.
You'd leave with horrible gut rot.
Yeah,
just sugar.
You feel good about yourself, but terrible at the same time.
Yeah.
Which is the Symptones method.
Yeah. I'll also just add too, like, I mean, you know, being that this is kind of the third time we've worked with Ollie too, I feel like we've all kind of gotten closer with him and likewise with him with us too. So, you know, like for me personally, like I felt like I was, you know, not as nervous to be like, hey, like, what if I did this, or how does this sound? And, you know, he wasn't shy at all to be like, no, yeah, you did fuck up there, so let's do that part again.
Yeah.
You know? So
also from my perspective as not the guitar player, because he's in another heaven, who are so sick and have such sweet guitar parts. From an outsider's view, he'll be like, "Oh yeah, let's try like this pedal or this whatever on the guitar." I'm like, this sounds so tight. It's sweet that like our main recording dude like has all of this at his disposal. Also, I said, over COVID, my hobby was buying a shitload of auxiliary percussion instruments with the hopes that we would use all of them. And so like we really got down to the wire, so much so that I was like very stressed that this album wasn't going to get done in time. And I was like, I don't know, like I feel like it'd be tight if we added these you name it, gyro or fucking what are those things called? I don't know. Whatever.
Clamshell
Let's
things.
add 1,000 things to this thing. And he was like, yeah, I think you need like a shaker for a verse and then nothing else. I'm like, okay.
Cool.
Right.
Trust you.
I can accept that.
Yeah.
Accept that.
Steve just came into a lot of spending money, and he was like, I need a kabasa, I need a djembe.
Got bongos.
Got it all. Didn't use any
What
of
are
it.
those things? What are those things you hit on the ground at the jam space?
Hit on the ground.
You know the dum, 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 dum.
Rototoms.
Yeah,
Rototoms.
Oh my God, why am I forgetting
Aren't they
their
called
name?
rototoms?
Timbales?
Yeah.
Yeah, is that it? Timbales?
Yeah. We were going to bring them here, but I was like,
Definitely
I don't know if
my
there's room.
They're awesome. For the record, they sound so good.
Listen
yeah.
for them on album 3.
Yeah.
Gloria Stefan feature.
Well, you're gonna go full like have a shoegaze moment where you can use all of the amps that Ollie's got on hand.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yes. So we just a few questions left here tonight. So what do we have some like favorite memories from working on this process, whether it was recording or writing or have something those first jams back? Like what was some moments that y'all have like that come to mind when you think about working on the self-titled Symptones record?
We I can start. There was one session, I think, when we were probably tracking trumpet. And then we happened on there was a vintage Wurlitzer in Flowers studio, and that got put on Getting On, and that was just like a
Got
nice
on getting on.
Yeah, got on Getting On. That was like a nice unexpected addition. Another time, I think, when we were doing keyboards in Ollie's practice space
In the closet.
in a very small practice space, and we had just thrown like everything at the bridge of power lines.
Power lines like exploded that night. Yeah, that was dope as hell.
It was really cool. That was really cool.
That was where the
What
harmonica
you
came
guys did
from,
on
which
the
was like
on the bridge of
the
that
coolest
with
thing.
your keyboard part it sounds so tight, and I don't think we ever jammed that. And then the harmonica sounds so tight too. And then that keyboard part comes back at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I love that.
Ali, that was an Ali thing. He brought
It
it
was?
back at the end.
Yeah.
I didn't play that at the end.
Yep.
That was Ali.
Yeah, he did.
He's like, yeah, apparently need more of that, which I don't disagree.
Yeah.
with.
And there's like a droning Moog synthesizer that
The Moog.
Nemec was just playing one note, and I was turning dials
Yeah.
while we're.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I was
It's
literally
a-
holding the
a
key
team
down and
sport.
Taylor's just fucking with dials. It sounded so cool.
Hell
I'm
yeah.
pretty sure that's the secret to any
That was
keyboard
a-
part.
It is.
That was a pretty fun
You're not
moment.
two
moving our hands
people.
around.
Yeah.
What'd you guys say?
I mean, all right, you go.
I was just gonna say probably going to Flower Studio for the first time was awesome
Yeah.
because I think that's probably the biggest studio we've been in, and it also just kind of leading up to that point of getting into Flowers, because I think what happens a lot with us too when we get close to when we know we're recording is we get some of those songs that are kind of half written and we just polish them up and we form them and they're good to go. Like National Pastime was one, and
Yeah.
Something to Care For
Yeah.
was, we kind of had a little bit of it together, but then we put the rest together, and so it's just kind of great going with those songs too, because then they're that more like kind of fresh when you're in the studio too, and they're that much more fun to play. So, but yeah, I would say that too. And just kind of walking in. I remember like before, I think it was like that previous November. That's when that Beatles documentary came out, Get Back. And
Yeah.
I remember seeing like similar lights up on the ceiling in like the live room, and I was like,
The room is so cool.
Yeah, that live room
Flowers,
is
it's such a
awesome.
cool room.
yeah. So I was like, yeah, whatever we do here is going to be good.
Yeah.
I just like that we persevered.
Played a good game.
We're survivors.
Tried hard. No, I mean we did a lot of things. We had a long writing process. There's a lot of roadblocks that we just kept
Mm-hmm.
moving past. So I thought that was really cool. You know, we got COVID, family members got COVID, long breaks. Yeah, and trying to do it ourselves, just working through a lot of things, stumbling, and I don't know.
Yeah, and
becoming better for it, I guess.
agreed. Yeah, and like during the recording process too, just everybody has full-time jobs too.
Yeah.
And so like scheduling out, I don't know, half sessions or like 3-hour sessions, I'm not gonna lie, it felt like a bit of a slog towards like the end. There were a few sessions that weren't as fun as the others just because you were playing the rhythm parts or something that you have played a million times. But agreed, yeah, it's very cool that we were able to.
Just love being with my boys.
Yeah. This album too is the first time that we've recorded where we're not always all together each session, you know, like there's some sessions that was just Taylor and I, or Taylor and Jake, or just Steve and I, or whoever, you know. So which I mean wasn't a bad thing, but it's something that we have never done before. So yeah.
What about you, Steve?
Yeah, multiple things, I guess. Flower Studio, I was gonna say, like Jeremy, like that was just so tight. I was pumped, like originally when we were talking about recording ourselves, I was pretty excited about it. We like bought mics. I was like, we could fucking do this. And then we had so many literal like, all right, we got to take. All right, I have COVID. And so that, and I really don't remember. I went to a Whitmer Thomas comedy show and I ran into Ollie and Monica there. And I remember talking to him being like, yeah, like we're trying to record ourselves, but like we want you to mix it still. He was like, cool. And then like a month later, we were like, all right, we want you to do everything. And he was like, yeah, I know. And so I was like, all right. But like, once we like eventually went
What else is new?
to Flowers, that was sick. And then just like, I really believed in these songs. 'Cause I was like, I do believe they're our best batch we've written. And I was like, I know we can make these like so tight. And like, we just tried a lot of stuff like on, even if it's not like really perceptible to anyone besides us, like for example, like take a look around. We have like little like distorted vocals. Like I would say something stupid like, all right, let's make this like Julian Casablancas, like strokes, like distorted. And then Ollie would send back like whatever. But yeah, like it's kind of like a flip side to the coin where it's like, there were times where I was like, I'm going to have a panic attack. This is ruining my life and summer, and I hate myself, and I hate this band. And then we get through it and be like, this is the coolest thing I've ever done in my life, and I feel so fulfilled. And so I don't know. I would say Flower Studio, sticking with and like believing in these songs and these boys. And then, truly like we usually, before COVID, would have like shows booked like pretty much every month at least, and like really working towards. It was a huge pain in the ass to get our release show booked. I won't go into it. Turf Club, defend yourself. Come on the pod. But last week we had the show and it was at Ice House and it fucking rocked and we had like tons of people.
I'll say
there.
that's one of the highlights. I think
it ruled.
That was so much fun.
That's a good one.
And also like we had these like false starts with booking the release show, talking to like a million bands, and it's like it'd be like, oh, all right, we're gonna play with this band, it's gonna be sick, and then for whatever reason, either the band or the show fell through, and like finally booking it and it just working out so great, and yeah, so I don't know. I guess my highlight is now that I can highlight, and I'm terrified for the next week of my life, is because like all summer and really the last 6 months, I've been like only focused on this, like creatively, like this is what I am focused on. I want this to be as good as possible. And now that it's out, it's like, all right, hell yeah. Like it's just been a good, it's like, it feels good to be like, I know I put my whole ass into this.
Yeah.
And now it's like,
ass.
like we fucking did it. And like, part of it is like, I could have not been so obsessed with it. Sure. Of course. I'm psychotic. But the fact that it like paid off, and I think the songs sound really good. Even if no one else outside of the band thinks they sound good, I think they sound awesome. Yeah. And I really am proud of it. So just completing the project, I guess, in general, feels really good. And also working with Ollie again was just very rewarding. I think Another Heaven is so cool and so good, and also so different from us. But the fact that like I truly felt like he like really likes working with us and like respects us and thinks like you can tell he's like given his all too. So like that's just another factor of it's all good, baby. I'm drunk.
I don't even remember the question now.
What's the favorite memory of recording or the whole process?
Anyway, no, I mean, I honestly, like, for me, it was the show, quite frankly. I mean, that was for me, that was everything that everything was leading towards. I mean, I enjoy recording and doing all that for sure, but like, for me, it's live music. So everything for me was just like leaning towards the show, and like the fact that the show went off as well as it did, we had as good of a turnout as we did, and I think we played as well as we did. Like, we put on a great show, in my opinion. There were a lot of people there. It was a great time, and like for me, that was just like very validating. Where it was like, all right, like we have like killed ourselves over these last however many months. Especially like once we really got like not even like someone like writing the songs and everything was definitely a process. But like everyone's alluded to, it took years, or didn't like take years necessarily, but like all the songs coming together was over a certain period of years.
Yeah.
And then like the recording process really, once we like hit go and went for it, I mean, that was 6+ months that we were doing all that. It was, for me, that was just everything. It was just like into the show. It's like, we've got like finalized products, and let's go out and let's do it. And let's do it for people who haven't like heard it in its entirety before. And it was so well received. And that was just, for me, that was everything. I just loved it. And that's like, I'm super, super excited to keep moving forward. Just playing more live music. Like, I just love playing live music. Love playing music in general, but like that was it. It went super well. I think we did really good work. I'm really proud of what we did. And that's what I remember, and that's what I'm happy about.
Yeah.
We did lots of fun. For the show, we had like, we like to put on, especially for a release show, like lots of, like for Cousin James, that's the one where I was like, I bought 1,000 auxiliary percussion instruments. Let's throw them all in it. So
Dude,
like for the crowd,
shakers were dope as hell.
We handed out shakers to like 20 people in the crowd.
Yeah.
We had balloons.
Steve was really worried that people were going to throw them.
I was convinced.
I was also very worried. I didn't want to make a big deal about it, but I was convinced one of us was going to get pelted.
Literally every person we gave one to was like so happy after the show when I was like, no, you can keep that. And they're like, oh my God, I can keep this? It was like, yeah. It's like a memento of the show. That's
18
yours.
shakers on Amazon for $11. So
Hell yeah.
we did that and wrote the Symptones on it. So.
That rules. That's sick. Well, cool. So one final question here is, if people want to learn what's going on with the Symptones, where can they connect with y'all online?
Steve, take it.
All right. Like and subscribe. Pretty much everything is at the Symptones for like social media stuff, but we're on every streaming thing. We just got word we're on Deezer.
Hell yeah.
But
Big party.
We're on Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, I've been told. We're on Bandcamp. It's like the Symptones.bandcamp.com, SoundCloud. Listen to the songs, because you know, we can only hype it up so much ourselves, but like the songs are good. Trust us. The Current, defend yourselves. I've heard enough. Haven't heard the Symptones on there yet. Anyway, The Current, no. But yeah, we're on all the streaming things. The Symptones, our newest album, is self-titled. It has this awesome album art by our friend Veronica Krause, who kicked ass at it. And 12 songs of pure fucking rock and roll, baby.
They're not exclusively boat songs, but many of them are good for boat.
They'd be enhanced listened to on a boat, I would say.
Are we
I'm pretty
yacht
sure
rock?
they would also be great in an ice house on a lake in
I'd
the
say
winter.
so, yeah.
That's true.
Just
That's
on
true.
the water.
Yeah, or live.
Some
It was
good
good at an ice
Yeah.
house.
Some good home renovation songs I learned today as we were working in the basement, blasting the record.
Cool.
It's like, this doesn't
swinging the hammer a little quicker.
Yeah.
A little more powerful. That's great.
Hammering
Power
to the
lines.
beat.
Oh, I hit it.
Ting.
Electricity.
You don't want
That's
to hit
a
a
live
power
wire.
line.
Yeah.
that's bad.
Jake getting electrocuted power lines.
He had hair until that.
Worth it.
Well, Taylor, Steven, Andrew, Jeremy, and Jake, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah.
Congrats on the new record.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you,
so
and thanks
much
for having us. We
man.
love Ear Coffee is the coolest. We cannot thank you enough for having us and having us play live. And happy birthday!
Oh, thank you.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Recorded on our 6th birthday,
I hope many more years of Ear
Yeah.
Coffee, because you guys rule, and we're just very stoked you guys had us.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thanks a ton.
Let's make this the 4th most listened to episode of Ear Coffee, please.
Yeah.
Fourth most, our goal.
The Ear Coffee Podcast is a companion to the blog of the same name. If you like this episode, Please leave us a rate and review so we can stand out among the other music podcasts. You can follow us at Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram @EarCoffee. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.